Okay, so this was something that that Kenton came to me with last week, and we had me, him, and Randy had kind of a long conversation about it. So the idea is just like is fairly simple. It's just like doing like a revenue share, meaning that when we get certain partners, let's call them Swap Kit for might be an example, or Trust Wallet might be another example, or whatever, right? We kind of have a partnership with those Thor names, if you want to call them that. And when they give us X amount of revenue, 200,000, don't get too attached to the numbers, but just making up numbers. If they give us $200,000, of revenue in a day or a month or whatever it is, we'll give them 10% of what they gave the protocol. If they give us 500,000, we'll give them 20%. If they give us 10 million, we'll give them half of that, right? And so the idea is that, like, for something like like a swap kit where they're charging 25 bips on all of their partners, they don't really care if it's near or chain flip or THORChain. They're still getting their 25 bips either way. They have no interest in and they don't want to charge more fees. They're charging what they're charging. And, we could go to a swap kit and we say, like, hey, if you give us more volume, instead of getting 25 bips per trade, you'll get, 25 bips plus 10%, right? Or plus this, plus that, or whatever it might be. And to really kind of, create a stronger economic incentive and really empower somebody like, Randy, who's doing business development, to be able to, have a selling point, to, a reason to integrate with THORChain that is, that Chainflip doesn't have or near or whatever. And so we can just get them to just send us more volume and we'll give you more revenue, right? And as the more red fees we collect, the more fees you collect, right? Make it directly conditional in that sense. Not conditional, but directly symbiotic, or if you want to use it that way. And so it just gives us another kind of lever to pull on to garner more fees, more volume from from our vast market out there.
Well, I'm smiling like an idiot because I don't really have much to add to that, Chad. I think that's an excellent idea. It's a positive feedback loop. It aligns the incentives of actually, getting more swap volume, which is the most important thing, and you should definitely do that. So, if anyone has any problems with that, let me know. But that doesn't check one red flag in my brain. That is a simple incentive that allows us to capture integrations and to reward them for using THORChain on the back end. It is a beautiful idea. It is, again, a positive feedback loop. My brain really likes those. So yeah, boys, fire away. I don't think nodes are going to have a problem with that. Are you a node out there? Let us know. You want an ADR on this? Maybe you have questions. Fair questions. Maybe they want some details. Maybe I'm not thinking of the question. Let's get that going. Put it in Dev Discord. But to me, this seems pretty obvious. And to Kenton's point earlier, I didn't know what he was talking about, but now I do. This is the way it should have always been done. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I
I
agree
think
with
one of
that.
the complexities about it that I'm still kind of mulling over or thinking about is, like, how do we control this? Is it algorithmic? Is it manually managed? Like, what is it here? I think what we left the conversation last we spoke, and of course this is, subject to discussion and change and, based upon the community feedback and all these things, is that, like, just having it just be an operational mirror for a per Thor name basis. And so that way, just, people like Randy and Kenton can, talk to some affiliate of some kind, and kind of cut a deal of whatever. And then getting like five of Kenton's nodes, or, or other people's, just to have 5 nodes vote to give this particular affiliate 10% or 20% back. Now, if somebody, does this maliciously and they, enable it when they shouldn't be enable it, then 6 nodes have to vote against those 5 nodes. And it just becomes a kind of a, on-chain voting battle between those 2 points, which I'm not terribly concerned about, because, nodes are nodes. Like, they're not malicious by nature. And if they start to be malicious and give themselves, cheaper fees or whatever, that's fine. And then we just vote against them and turn it off. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
Right. And I like how you said that the more swap volume they did, the higher percentage of a kickback they get. I think that's a perfectly tiered incentive, you know what I mean? Which
Hmm.
actually incentivizes them to even do more volume, right? Maybe like go to THORChain specifically instead of a competitor. I think
Mhm.
that's a really good idea. I guess I'm kind of curious what would happen in special weird scenarios where if they made a swap and it went out of slip parameters, would well, I guess it wouldn't matter, right? Because the fee is already charged. That's not
Well,
right.
if they don't if the swap doesn't execute because of it doesn't hit the right parameters or whatever, then it doesn't count. Because
Right,
we didn't collect any fees from that transaction, right?
right, yeah,
Or maybe we did a
simple.
partial streaming swap, or some of the sub swaps worked and some of them didn't, and and that's a partial, and that's fine. That still counts. So we might just do a thing of like, okay, here's the table, in a 30-day period, on average, how much revenue did you generate for the protocol? If you're in the gold tier, that's $10 million. If you're in the, silver tier, or that's $1 million. I have no idea what these numbers are actually going to be. I'm just making up
I
random numbers right
understand.
now. But like, you have to perform for 30 days, giving us a good amount of volume, and then we'll look in on the 30th day. We'll like somebody like Kenton or Randy would look at that, look at your data, and say, oh hey, you gave us $10 million this last 30. So for the next 30 days, we'll give you the 50%, kickbacks, and so forth and so
Yes.
on.
Yeah, I like how you have an upgradable tier system, and then maybe you can even do a system where the top 5 performing integrators get an additional thing. So there's competition between integrators, not just competition with themselves to increase the tier to like a silver or gold or whatever vernacular we use, but maybe you could do an overall competition where the best of the best. I don't know. Maybe that adds too much complexity, but there's a lot to think about. Pretty cool.
It
I
is.
like
I
the
mean,
idea.
keep it simple for V1, and
Yeah,
test it out.
V1 simple.
Keep it simple for V1, test it out. Let's see how it goes, and if it's really successful, then we can kind of learn from what we've done thus far in mainnet with actual data and interactions and like the results of, and then you can look at V2 and say, now that we know more than we know, that we do today, how do we want to change it? How do we want to improve it? What includes in V2 of this concept? But for V1, keep it simple and
Keep it
test the
simple. I
waters
agree.
and see if we can use it as a tool to garner more volume, and convince more wallets and integrators, like you can make more money, using THORChain without really, gouging your users, right? And increasing the bips that you want to receive. You can keep the fees cheap for them, but you still make more money.
Indeed, and if you have this system, what's really cool about it too is because since they're such powerful ecosystem partners, not just for THORChain but the industry at large, like imagine a trust wallet. If they're making good money with THORChain, then they're our greatest advocate and our defender. They don't want this,
Sure.
money to go. So I think this is a great idea on multiple levels. I love it. My brain loves
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I've already started coding it up, just to code it up, and then we can do an ADR if we want to, and vote it through or whatever. But because I wasn't sure about some of the math of it or the complexities of like the code part, I wasn't sure about X, Y, or Z, and so I wanted to play with it to wrap my brain a little more deeply. But it's actually not as hard to implement than I thought it was when I first was thinking about it. So I'm actually quite relieved that it's not that complicated. It seems.
Absolutely love it, man. Absolutely love it. So there you go, guys. There's some alpha for you. Some new ideas at work, and I love when that stuff drops on the show. This is what these shows are meant to do, Chad. I love it. Oh, so happy.
I love
Okay.
dropping alpha on this show. That's my favorite part of this whole show, is just dropping some fun alpha of like some fun idea concept for the roadmap that just feels really bullish, and position us much stronger in the industry, right? I'm happy to be back working on this protocol again, and I'm happy to return it to its more former glory, in a sense, and I'll do everything I can to get it there.
I love it too, and I am so glad you're back. And that's the cool thing with THORChain is like yeah, we have our roadmap that we talk about all the time, but really we could just come up to an idea and say, let's do it. Let's do it. Whatever. It could be like a really sudden event, and then suddenly like everything changes. Like that's why I remember streaming swaps. Like streaming swaps was such a huge moment. I remember you talking about it. Like if I remember correctly, you were like a little skeptical on the idea, and then it was like the next one, you're like, well, actually, wait a minute. This actually could cause us to have the best price execution of any single outlet out there. And you were 100% correct. And you coded it, and it was such a banger thing. So,
Yeah, yeah. For
those are the glory days. I
For the
love it.
while, we were the cheapest place to buy and sell Bitcoin on the planet. Like, we were better than Binance and Coinbase and all those guys. We were only DEX the option at the time that supported Bitcoin nature on the layer one Bitcoin, and we were the cheapest place for a long time, and that was because of, and even with large trades, like super large trades, I mean, it was pretty awesome. I was super proud of what we had accomplished.
Yeah, I'm still proud of what we've done. We're often the one. I mean, Maya protocol would do the same thing, of course. So shout out to our Maya protocol. We love them to death. But we're still like this. I feel like there is something special. It's people listening to this who may not be. I swear this is not like some solipsistic, narcissistic episode. Like THORChain, by far, is like often the lone knight when it comes to upholding like the ethos of blockchain space. I mean, I don't think that's questioned at this point. I mean, we're pioneers and we just will never stop. We keep going. So just love this community.